Nina Simone, influence to influencer, waymaker, leader, inspirer by intuition, teacher, singer, protester, activist, and social justice warrior. Nina Simone is considered an early pioneer in the modern-day intersectional approach to social justice. For years, leaders in social justice tend to create the concept of pinnacle social justice warriors, placing unrealistic expectations on advocates that perpetuate cycles of oppression rather than work to end them, as is the goal of the movements to begin with. Today, these expectations seem more positive than ever, like being perfectly progressive in every way all the time, accounting for all groups of people, never leaving one out. This sounds great in theory, however, advocates become afraid of leaving out a group of people and of not being perfect in their progressiveness, which doesn't exist. Simone would be considered a pinnacle social justice warrior because we're applying hindsight. It was 1962 and it's 2020. However, her legacy completely contradicts the idea of the pinnacle social justice warrior. Her success was on account of her dedication to move away from defined movements, rather relying on her intuition to lead her activism. She questioned the expected narrative for female Black civil rights activists. While perfect progressiveness is the expectation today, female activists weren't always expected to be activists at all. And if they were going to advocate for any sort of social issue, they were expected to maintain politeness and femininity. Simone rejected this completely. Her songs were angry, pointed, militant, all adjectives that certainly were not representative of what females were expected to be at this time. They were controversial, and people said they crossed lines. Her style was bold and reflective of her African roots, not feminine, not quiet, and certainly not demure. The only thing that led Simone was her intuition, and it led her in social justice far. She had far more of an impact, being unconcerned with being respectful or not facing backlash. When we consider Simone's success, rather than try and confine her to a modern movement and mimic exactly what she did, we should focus on how she did the opposite of that. How she redefined expectations that were placed on her by these movements sometimes to fit her own beliefs and her own efforts, rather than squeeze herself into a predetermined set of beliefs. We all have our own experiences and understandings of the world that shape our abilities to advocate for others. When we tune into those is when we're able to achieve real progress. In my personal life, the idea of the pinnacle social justice warrior has caused me great frustration. I consider myself very progressive, and one of my main frustrations is feeling like I lack the credentials to speak on issues that I feel very passionately about, even though I do feel educated and experienced enough to do so. Intersectionality has become the norm in social justice, and it's evolved into a defined social movement. I agree with the basis of it. I think it's great for everyone to receive the advocacy that they deserve. However, I think that it has turned into a defined movement, and thus it carries rules that limit its ability to have real impact. You can advocate for Black lives, but all lives matter, right? I do actually have a very good analogy for that about dolphins, but I will not. That's besides the point. LGBTQ rights, for example, but don't forget the Q, the I, the A. Don't forget any of the letters. In a realm that is constantly evolving, it's difficult to keep up, and it's easy not to have the most up-to-date facts and data. Of course, I support rights for all people, but I find myself growing resentment towards things that I fully 100% support because of the backlash that you receive when you do accidentally leave out a group of people. That is super not cool, and that loses people who would otherwise advocate for things that certainly need to be advocated for. Simone's approach to social justice is the best one, in my opinion, and I think that labeling it as intersectional does more harm than good, and is not at all what Simone strove to represent. Simone's approach takes each person's individual experiences of the world and allows them to build off of them, growing, learning, and creating actual change along the way. rather than abiding by set rules and striving to be the perfect social justice advocate, which, as I said, doesn't exist. By following Simone's example in this way, I think we'll achieve real success and also offer everyone around us more grace at the same time.